Today, Israel carries out its anticipated strikes on Iran as blasts are reported in Tehran and Damascus.
The State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond.
Leaders cast their ballots as Queenslanders head to the polls in the state election. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump head to Texas less than 2 weeks out from the US election.
Cross towards Benny. It's still there. Rötler!
And the Matildas tie with Switzerland in the first game since Tony Gustafsson's departure. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Nick Dole. The Israeli military says it's conducting precise strikes against military targets in Iran. Earlier, Iran's state television reported explosions in the capital Tehran and the nearby city of Karaj. Blasts have also been reported in the Syrian capital Damascus. Israel had been planning a response to the ballistic missile barrage fired from Iran on the 1st of October, which was Tehran's second direct attack on Israel in 6 months.
The regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7th on 7 fronts, including direct attacks from Iranian soil. Like every other sovereign country in the world, the State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are fully mobilized.
And reporter Emily Gremens joins us now from the Washington Bureau. Emily, what do we know about these airstrikes?
Well, the region and indeed the world has been braced all month for the anticipated response from Israel to the barrage of missiles you mentioned earlier, Nick. 200 missiles were launched towards Israel on the 1st of October, and now it seems that Israel has responded to Iran. As you heard, the Israeli Defense Force says that it's launched precise, targeted strikes on military targets. It says it has a right and a duty to respond to what it's called continuous attacks from Tehran. Those ballistic missile strikes on the 1st of October were Iran's response to the killing of the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, in Lebanon, and the assassination of a Hamas leader in Tehran. This was Iran's second attack direct on Israel in 6 months. So tonight, in the very early hours of Tehran's morning, we began to hear reports of explosions in the capital Tehran and the nearby city of Karaj, and there have been explosions reported in Syria as well. Now, the full scope of these attacks is not yet clear. We have heard here in the United States that local media has reported that the US was given some notification from Israel about these attacks. We've heard a statement from the White House National Security Council that says it understands that Israel is launching precise attacks as an exercise of self-defense and in response to the October 1st barrage of ballistic missiles. Now, as I mentioned, the region has been bracing for this. It's been incredibly high tensions in the Middle East, and the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in fact, concluded another visit to the region just this week where he was seeking to bring the temperature down. Now, we don't know the full scale of these attacks yet, but there are still many fears that the increasing confrontations between Israel and Iran threaten to boil over into an all-out regional war.
OK, Emily Gremens live in Washington. Thanks for that update. Back home, and the Sunshine Coast will be one of the places to watch as the Queensland state election results roll in tonight. There are 2 marginal seats held by Labor, and the LNP is also hoping to topple a popular independent MP at Noosa. Reporter Jessica Ross is in Noosa today. And Jess, do you think there could be a potential upset there tonight?
Good morning, Nick. Yes, there is definitely the potential here. We have a very strong independent MP, Sandy Bolton, who was first elected back in 2017 from the LNP's Glen Elms, who had held the position previously. She's increased her vote at 2020 and has a pretty comfortable margin of 15.8%. So on paper, it's a comfortable seat. She's been campaigning on issues like affordable housing. A lot of people think of Noosa as being quite a wealthy area, but obviously there's all the workers in the tourism and hospitality sector, and a lot of them have been priced out of the market in recent years. So affordable housing has been a big issue that Sandy Bolton has been passionate about, but so too is her opponent, and that is Claire Stewart. She was the former Noosa mayor, so she has some public recognition there as well, and she's been campaigning on those issues when she was in mayor and also now as the LNP candidate. She's also been pushing that law and order focus, which we've seen across Queensland, and Noosa also has its share of crime as well, particularly at night time with the nightlife precinct. And so she's saying if she's elected, she'll establish a safe night precinct here, and she's hoping that that will help sway voters as well. So two very strong women here running for this position at Noosa.
Yeah, and there are two other seats that'll really be worth watching too.
Yeah, so just south of here we have the Nicklin electorate. That kind of takes in the Sunshine Coast hinterland, towns like Nambour and Palmwoods. It's currently held by Robert Skelton, and he just scraped in the 2020 election by 84 votes. He has the second slimmest margin across the state with 0.1%. He took over from the LNP's Marty Hunt, who's now back again trying to reclaim his seat. Now, being a marginal seat, we have seen the leaders visit this area, visit Nambour, particularly in the election campaign, and also in the whole year we had, which was the election campaign that you have before the election campaign proper. So that one has been quite a battleground for them. Also further south from that we have the Caloundra seat. Now that was traditionally an LNP stronghold for many years, but when their member Mark McArdle retired in 2020, Jason Hunt pulled off quite an upset there, and he was elected for Labor. And people were surprised by this, but the demographic at Caloundra has changed. There's a lot of retirees still, but also lots of young families have moved to the area since they've been developing. There's been some big housing developments with the Aura community down there as well. So that changing demographic did see support favour Labor, but they do also have a strong LNP candidate down there with Kendall Morton, who's a mother of four, a businesswoman, and she's been campaigning pretty heavily on things like congestion and the growing pains, essentially, that the area's been feeling as a result of these new communities. So there's some very potentially knife-edge battles tonight that'll be played out even here in beautiful Noosa.
Certainly looks like it will be tight. Jessica Ross live in Noosa. Thanks for that update. With just 11 days to go before the US election, both presidential candidates are on the campaign trail in the state of Texas. North America correspondent Barbara Miller has more from Atlanta, Georgia.
Texas is certainly not a swing state or a battleground state. Kamala Harris, you would not expect, would think that she is going to win that state. But she has gone there because she wants to highlight the issue of abortion. Texas has a near total ban on the procedure. And Kamala Harris, we expect, will tell the crowd at the campaign rally that she will fight to enshrine the right to abortion in law if she is elected to the White House. Of course, many U.S. states since the fall of Roe v. Wade in 2022 have restricted the right to abortion. And that's the event where we still think that Beyonce will turn up. That has been widely reported, widely rumoured, but there has been no official confirmation of that. Donald Trump also has been in Austin, Texas, and that was to record an interview with Joe Rogan, the podcaster. Now, Joe Rogan has tens of millions of followers. Many of them are young men, and that's a demographic that Donald Trump is doing increasingly well with and has been openly courting. After that, Donald Trump, the Republican presidential hopeful, heads back to the swing states. He's got a campaign event later in Michigan. Now, early voting has begun in many states, including here in Georgia. We're just outside a library that's functioning as an early polling centre in Atlanta. And we're seeing a steady trickle of people throughout the afternoon here turn up to cast their ballot. We spoke to a few of them. How do you feel having cast your vote?
Excited. This is one of those that you can't sit at home on. I did attend the rally last night with the Vice President and former President Obama, and so the energy is so high. I just hope Georgia can do it again.
What do you think is at stake in this election?
The fate of the United States of America.
And to whose hands would you like to see it in?
Duh. The sane one, Kamala Harris.
I voted for Donald Trump. There's several reasons why. The border, the illegal aliens, okay, the
Self said at a campaign event here in Atlanta last night, the election is here. She's actively encouraging her supporters to get out and vote early. And Donald Trump, after previously suggesting that there were issues with early voting procedures, has also been doing the same. And one of the reasons both campaigns like people to get out and vote early is that they analyze, they mine the data from who is voting, and that really allows them to target their get out the vote efforts in a country which of course doesn't have mandatory voting. So they're really targeting efforts to encourage people to register to vote in the absolute final days of this campaign. Now just 11 days to go until America votes.
Treasurer Jim Chalmers has concluded a trip to the United States where he attended the G20's biannual meetings with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The summit was held in Washington, where Mr Chalmers says discussions centred on global economic uncertainty, including the conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine and China's softening economy. The Treasurer also took time to meet with advisors to both the Republican and Democratic camps, saying global economic uncertainty continues to pose a challenge for many nations.
What happens in the Middle East has economic consequences for Middle Australia. That is very clear. And even though we are confident that we've made substantial progress collectively and also in Australia, getting on top of this inflation challenge, which has been a central feature of our economies for the last couple of years, there are good reasons to be cautious as well. The biggest risk to the progress that we've made together since the depths of COVID is conflict. Conflict in the Middle East, conflict in the Ukraine, casting a dark shadow over the global economy right now.
Australian mining giant BHP has reached a multi-billion-dollar settlement with the Brazilian government over a dam collapse in 2015, which resulted in a landslide that killed 19 people. Brazilian authorities claim it was the country's worst environmental disaster, with the collapse in the southeastern city of Mariana leaving hundreds homeless and the Rio Doce River severely polluted. Under the settlement, BHP, along with other companies Samarco and Vale, have agreed to pay more than $45 billion to Brazil. While the coalition is pushing to build 7 nuclear power plants around the country, Taiwan is working to phase out its own nuclear energy grid. The island's last reactor is due to be decommissioned next year amid fears of earthquakes and concerns about safe waste disposal. But as Taiwan imports nearly all its energy, most of which is fossil fuels, those advocating for nuclear to stay point out that it's really essential for energy security amid security threats from China. For more, here's this report from Kathleen Calderwood in Western Taiwan.
Lanyu, or Orchid Island, has been home to the indigenous Dole people for thousands of years.
These fields have been here for generations.
Shaman Umrush and this island have been at the heart of Taiwan's nuclear debate since the 80s, when the government built a nuclear waste site here. As the local school principal, Shaman Umrush maintains the rage.
Once we learned it was a nuclear waste, we started protesting. It has been nearly 40 years now.
The waste stored here is low level, but investigations have found it's been badly managed, potentially exposing workers to high levels of radiation.
If the nuclear waste stays in Lanyu, it will continue to impact the environment.
But the electricity company Taipower says radiation around the dump is within safe limits.
The ABC came here more than a decade ago, in the years following the 2011 Fukushima disaster in Japan, as fears about nuclear grew here in Taiwan. Taiwan. Since then, a new government has decided to phase out all nuclear power. Even so, the local fight about the nuclear waste dump here remains.
But getting rid of nuclear energy creates a completely different set of problems. In the past 4 years, there have been 3 major blackouts across Taiwan.
And that should be absolutely unacceptable, especially in a country where there's so much high tech.
97% of Taiwan's energy sources are imported, from uranium to coal and gas. Taiwanese people are well aware how vulnerable they are to a blockade or even invasion by China.
Energy transition is a must, but we can't rush suspending the last nuclear power plant. If you want to stay competitive on the international stage and attract more foreign investments into Taiwan, the issue of electricity supply must be resolved.
Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Lanyu, Taiwan.
Returning to our breaking news this hour, and the Israeli military says it's conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran. Iranian state media is reporting multiple explosions in the capital, Tehran, as well as a neighbouring city. Global Affairs editor John Lyons joins me now in the studio for more. John, this news is only a couple of hours old, really. What are you hearing?
Well, Nick, there's been weeks and weeks, of course, if not months, build up to this anticipation. So what we know is that Israel has finally attacked Iran, as we expected there would be. Both Iran and Israel have both confirmed that. Israel has announced that they're right now conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran, is the way that they are phrasing it. Daniel Hagari, their spokesperson, he says the regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7 on 7 fronts. In contrast, Iranian state television, which is essentially government television, has reported explosions in several parts of the country, including Tehran and also in the city of Karaj. Which is interesting as to why they're targeting Karaj. There are eyewitnesses in Tehran telling Associated Press and others that they've heard about 7 explosions. Some of those, however, could be anti-air defence systems. They're not necessarily all Israeli missiles landing. And so this, of course, is in response to Iran's ballistic attack on Israel on October the 1st, which of course was in response to other things.
And when that happened, I think some were expecting perhaps quite a swift response from Israel. Why do you think it has taken them this long to formulate their response and to strike back?
The delay has been because Israel wanted to get into place the THAAD anti-missile system, which is the thermal high-altitude area defence system. Now, that is the United States system. It's the state-of-the-art system. It's the best, although Israel has the Iron Dome system, which you know from having worked there. However, the Iron Dome system is most effective at shorter-range missiles coming from Gaza or from the south of Lebanon. The THAAD system is state-of-the-art. The Americans installed that over the last few days, as well as sent about 95 American Pentagon personnel who are experts at using that. Now, that was in anticipation of Iran responding to this attack. Obviously, the Israelis were worried, and the Americans, that there would be longer range, more effective missiles coming from either Iran or from Lebanon. I've just returned from Lebanon, from Beirut. Hezbollah, of course, is in a war with Israel. Hezbollah is not at the moment using a lot of its precision missiles. So Israel is concerned, I think, that there will be a two-pronged counter-response from Iran and from Lebanon. The other interesting thing is there are reports coming through in the last few minutes that targets in Syria have been hit. Now, that could well be Iranian militia in Syria.
And in terms of that response, do you think Tehran has any option but to respond?
It all depends on the politics of it, and it all depends on the exact severity. It's about 4:30 or 4:45 a.m. in Tehran. We don't yet know the extent of the damage. It looks at this point as if the Israelis have not gone for either oil or nuclear facilities. The United States has been trying very hard in the last few weeks to urge Israel not to hit Iran's nuclear plants and its oil plants on the basis that that would escalate things even further. If it is just on the military installations, we still don't know that for sure yet. Early indications are it's not a broad brush attack by Israel. Then it may mean that Iran does not particularly launch any response, which might de-escalate things. Neither Iran nor Israel nor Hezbollah wants this to be a full regional war.
We've seen Benjamin Netanyahu say in the past that, you know, his argument is not with the Iranian people. Do you think that sort of factors into his decision too, if he's trying to drive a wedge between the people and the government, that hitting civilian infrastructure, hitting things like oil, you know, could be counterproductive in that way? It
could be the case, but he has also said our argument is not with the Lebanese people, it's not with civilians in Lebanon and civilians in Gaza. Look at the sheer number, the tens of thousands of women and children that Israel has killed in Gaza. Now, having just come back from Beirut, parts of Beirut are now resembling Gaza, the southern suburbs of Beirut. So, yet again, Israel is killing large numbers of civilians in Lebanon, as well as Gaza, as well as the West Bank. There's been about 622 Palestinians killed since October 7 in the West Bank alone. The fascinating thing about what's going on right now, Nick, is with this latest attack, it means that right now, or over the last week or so, Israel has been bombing, or is bombing, Gaza, the West Bank, southern Lebanon, central Lebanon, northern Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley, southern suburbs of Beirut, parts of Syria, and now Iran. It's quite extraordinary when you look at this in terms of the arc of history. This particular war now is unlike anything we've seen before.
OK, John Lyons, thanks very much for bringing us up to date with the latest. Former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking charges. Mr Jeffries is accused of 1 count of sex trafficking and 15 counts of prostitution. Prosecutors said the alleged scheme ran from 2008 to 2015, with the indictment reading that victims were forced to consume alcohol, drugs and perform sex acts against their will. They were also required to sign non-disclosure agreements, the indictment said. Police in Northern Ireland have welcomed a life sentence given to one of the world's most prolific online child abusers. A Belfast court found Alexander McCartney guilty of committing 185 charges of online child sexual abuse and blackmail using catfishing tactics. He's reported to have targeted up to 3,500 children around the world. The court heard 26-year-old computer science student used a fake online identity claiming he was a teenage girl. The lead prosecutor, Detective Chief Superintendent Eamon Carrigan, says McCartney deserves to be behind bars for the rest of his life. Police have confirmed that a woman has been charged after allegedly assaulting Senator Lydia Thorpe outside the MCG in Melbourne in May. Victoria Police arrested a 27-year-old Preston woman in July after allegedly assaulting another woman outside an AFL match. News of the charges have been revealed after media questioning this week over Senator Thorpe's prolonged absence from Parliament. Let's get the latest sport. Now here's Daniela Intili.
Matilda's new era has begun with a 1-1 draw against Switzerland in Zurich in Tom Samani's first match as interim coach. Australia goalkeeper Mackenzie Arnold made a great save to deny the 25th ranked Swiss the opener in the first time the two sides had ever played each other. Caitlin Ford was fouled by Switzerland's goalkeeper and put the Matildas ahead from the penalty spot 2 minutes before half-time. Geraldine Roltier's strike in the 58th minute earned the hosts a draw against the 15th ranked Australians. The Matildas' next match will be a friendly against Germany in Duisburg on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, no, it was good to be back out there again, obviously to play for your country, our country, and yeah, I mean, to get the point tonight, I think we're a little bit disappointed not to come away with the win, and we wanted to keep a clean sheet tonight, so a few things that we can work on, but I think positive for our first game back together.
Nottingham Forest has moved up to 5th spot in the English Premier League, defeating hosts Leicester City 3-1. Ryan Yates put a double against his former club to take his league goal tally to 7 this season. Just behind Leicester puts the Foxes in 14th place. The Newcastle Jets scored a dramatic 2-1 comeback win over the Macarthur Bulls at Campbelltown Stadium to kick off round 2 of the A-League Men's. Marlon Yarklish opened the scoring for the home side, but a quick-fire double in the second half from Ellie Adams and a stoppage-time penalty save from Ryan Scott earned the visitors their first win of the season. Tempers fled after the match, leading to a red card for Macarthur assistant coach Christopher Gamble. North Melbourne remains undefeated in the AFLW after the Kangaroos held off Adelaide Goonwurrung by 8 points at Norwood Oval as the Indigenous round continues. Yasmin Garner led the way for North with 2 goals and 27 disposals. Katie Sherlock also booted 2 majors for the visitors. The Crows staged a fight back in the fourth quarter, but the Kangaroos held on to win 6-5-41 to 4-9-33. The victory returns North to the top of the ladder and a step closer towards the minor premiership, while the Crows' hopes of a top 4 finish have taken a hit, slipping to 7-3. The Wildcats have beaten the Sydney Kings in a thrilling finish in the NBL in Perth. Keanu Pinder top scored for the home side with 34 points. Sydney's Kuat Noy got the margin to 1 point and then had a chance to send the match into overtime, but missed a crucial 3-pointer with just seconds remaining, giving the Wildcats an 87-84 win. In Adelaide, the 36ers claimed a 99-93 overtime win against the Cairns Taipans. US import Montrezl Harrell starred for the hosts with 36 points and 16 rebounds. Australian McLaren driver Oscar Piastri was second fastest in second practice of the Mexico Formula One Grand Prix. Ferrari's Carlos Sainz topped the timesheets ahead of Piastri with RB Yuki Tsunoda in third. Mercedes' George Russell crashed into the barriers during that practice session, resulting in a red flag. There was also a crash in the first practice session. Oliver Bearman a heavy collision with Williams driver Alex Albon. The Constellation Cup Series shifts to Australia, where the Diamonds and New Zealand will play the final 2 tests in Perth and Melbourne. Australia need to win at least the next 2 matches to keep hold of the Cup after another heavy loss in Auckland. It's the first time in 5 years Australia is playing in Perth, and Diamonds goal attack Sophie Dwyer says the team will embrace the home advantage.
I think, we always talk about how our comeback is bigger than our setback. It's a bit of a saying in our environment. So I think, whilst it hasn't been an ideal start for us, we're not out of it yet. So we're definitely having that mindset. We've seen us do it before, so there's no reason why we can't do it again.
And that is ABC News for this half hour. I'm Nick Dole. Thanks for your company.